Guess who's Blizak, man? Salute to everyone in the building. I apologize for the longer than usual intro, man. I just have to get things ready, and it's an unusual time for me at this time, 7:40. All right, so salute to everyone in the building. Please, as usual, can you just give me a 1 just to confirm that the sound is good? Please hit a 1 in the chat just to confirm that the sound is good. I believe this is going to be a good one. You know, damn, man, sometimes I just have these ideas, you know, and I just start to think about the things that really affect us as men, right? So we're not talking about modern dating stuff. Well, I mean, it's related, but we're not talking about who's hit the wall. We're not talking about, you know, 10 reasons why not to date a single mother, for example. Okay, this is something that I think before you even go to those questions, we have to ask these questions about this issue. Okay, so for all the years of doing these things, thank you, MJA. I appreciate the 1. The sound is good, awesome. So I've been doing, you know, this thing, quote unquote, for a few years, right? And so I've seen distinctive personality traits, talking points. You know, I've been here for a while, so I kind of, you know, have a good skin in the game to know what's what and to have a good evaluation of current conditions and situations, right? I believe, what I'm trying to say is that I believe there are far more black incels, far more than meets the eye, right? And I think that the mainstream or people don't seem to realize it, because I think we might have we fall under this stereotype of being hip, being cool, being popular. So we won't typically have this issue unless you are unusually kind of, I guess, geeky, nerdy, right? But I believe there are more black incels than meets the eye. Okay, and I believe there are many reasons for that. So in this live stream, I'm going to go through 10 points that make me feel like this is true, right? 10 points, 10 bullet points why I believe there are far more black incels, black male incels, black British incels in particular, but it can also relate to USA guys, black guys in the USA. But of course, we're focused on the black British group in this stream. Right, so as usual, this will be a call-in format. I won't lay before you too long, but I have to cover these points because I think they're very important. But I'm going to open it up towards the end, okay? And we can discuss this in an open format, all right? So I'm going to put the link down once I've covered my 10 points, and then we can do that, yeah? So, where's my manners, man? Let me shout everyone out in the building, man. Salute to you. I know it's a different time. I know it was last minute. I apologize for that. But as long as we get the stream in, that's what I'm concerned with. As long as I'm staying consistent, that's the key thing. So the first one in the building, man, Diego Harry, aka Diego If in the building. Salute to you. He says, yo, first one in the house. I appreciate that. Next up, we got How 93. Good to see you in the building. We see KB Jones in the building. Salute to you, sir. Good to see you. We got Gamma 125. Salute to you in the building. We got MJA 2873 in the building. Salute to you. We got Jesse's Call of Duty channel. Salute to you. We got Captain Toast in the building. We got Manchester Blue in the building. We got Matt Gamer in the building. Like the usual suspects, man. I appreciate that. Is this a good time? What do you think? Is this a good time to do streams? To be honest, man, I'm typically busy at this time, but this was the best time to squeeze it in, right? But okay, I want to go through 10 reasons why I believe there are more black British incels over other ethnic groups, okay? And with this, I need a beat to just have that, give me the edge, you know? The beats keep me focused. The beat keeps me focused. Please press a 1 if the sound of the beat is okay. It's not too intrusive. I don't want it to overbear, you know, to be too overbearing. but I just need that focus, the clarity. You know, it's probably stereotypical, right? A black guy needs a beat. A black guy needs a beat. I'm definitely a stereotype. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. Salute to everyone in the building. Okay. 10 reasons why I think there are more black British incels, okay? I'm going to be as brief as I can. Okay. Number one, a lot of black guys are obsessed with Western beauty standards. Okay, I really should have banners up that says this, you know, obsessed with Western beauty standards, right? And what I mean is that I've realized that a lot of guys are actually, I'm not going to use it. I was trying to put up banners, but I'm not going to use banners, man. It's kind of long. But a lot of guys, man, like you all know Wheat Waffles, right? Wheat Waffles, he's a classic black pillar who actually rates other men in terms of their physical appearance, right? And this is a white guy. So, you know, the thing about different groups of people, different cultures, obviously they'll have their own different standards. Now, of course, we can say that, oh, you know, for the last 500 years or so, there's been a prevalence of a certain phenotype that it's more admirable, right? More accepted, right? Some people might argue there is not a Western beauty standard, but it's just a universal standard, right? But I think a lot of black guys are taking the opinions of non-black people in terms of how they appear, right? And I think this is a very critical reason why a lot of guys fall into the inceldom, because this affects self-esteem, right? Before people can even go out there and hunt, they already feel less than, right? And then some people go way deep into it. Some people, you know, they're looking at their nose, their mouth, the jawline, right? We've got these weird terms like Chad, Giga Chad. Like, I've never heard of a Giga Tyrone. It's just Giga Chad, right? So it's already putting up a certain phenotype on a pedestal. And the sad thing is that a lot of black guys are actually taking, you know, these content creators who, in my opinion, probably, you know, I don't want to be disrespectful, but probably have like an obsessive personality disorder, you know? And so they see things in a very kind of black and white, very logical way. It could be autism, right? But for most people who might have more of a balanced mentality, who might have been very experienced, they understand that that's not how it works, man. Like the access to a relationship or the access to a beautiful woman wasn't because you had wasn't because you looked ugly. Basically, you had big lips according to yourself. You had a broad, ugly nose according to yourself. You had all these features that just happened to pertain to like Africoid features. You know, that wasn't the reason why you didn't get access. So I believe that's one of the biggest issues, being too concerned or too consumed with Western beauty standards, thinking that's the reason why you can't entertain a relationship with that if that's what you want, right? So that pertains to low self-esteem. Okay, so that's number one, Western beauty standards. Number two, living as an ethnic minority. And this is something that I've always brought up on my channel, because I don't think a lot of people bring it up as much as it needs to be brought up, like making it understood the ill effects of being an ethnic minority, right? And this pertains to issues such as not feeling a part of a community, right? You don't navigate the country like it's your own. You're kind of like a stealth, like, you know, you're operating like a phantom. It's like some of us walk around, we don't look at people, you know, we don't feel connected with people, we don't talk to our neighbors, we just exist in this kind of like ghost, phased out kind of way of being, right? And what that would lead to, obviously, is less interaction. So in this context, we're speaking about the opposite sex, people who we might be involved with. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's just passion based, right? But you have less chance of having those interactions because of that mentality, or because of the reality of being an ethnic minority. Because with that, we all know it comes with strong stereotypes as well, right? There's a strong stigma associated with black men in general, but then you can accelerate that by, I don't know, wearing a hoodie, right? You know, people might assume, prejudge you or you know, prejudge your character and your nature, right? And also being an ethnic minority, you have that lower economic status, right? You might, I don't know, you might have longer working hours, so that might mean less energy to actually, you know, be just be willing to kind of put yourself out there, or to do things, to do stuff. You might have a lesser quote unquote status, right? And yeah, MJA, you said it, they feel like outcasts. Absolutely, right? And it's not necessarily, this is not something where it's pointing the finger at the individual, but, you know, I think, in my opinion, once you understand the realities of being an ethnic minority, it's now time to basically try your best to override the negative influences, right? So, you know, I've got loads of videos, especially pertaining to the incels, because I think, sorry, not the incels, the introvert. If you're an introvert and you already have all these kind of negatives, it's going to be probably doubly as bad, right? You might end up being a homebody and you're just absolutely not comfortable being outdoors, being outside, doing things, right? And of course, that's going to lower the pool of women available to you. You know what I mean? So that's number 2, living as an ethnic minority. Let me shout out my boy KB Jones, man, with this first sponsorship of the night, man. I really appreciate the 199 super chat, man. He says, posting from YouTube jail, big up to Blizzak. Yeah, man, I appreciate that, man. Sorry that your stream got struck, and it's one of those things, man. But you be out soon, man, bigger and better than ever. But salute to KB Jones, you know him. Check out KB Jones' channel, fellow British YouTuber. Okay, salute to KB Jones. Okay, so number 3, right? Number 3, I want to flow with these as swiftly as possible. Number 3, being shamed into not quote unquote dating out. And this is, again, something that we've spoken about many times. You're being shamed into not dating out, right? So these are the typical pro-black shaming lines. So we've already established we are ethnic minorities. We're a small group, a speck, you know, 3 to 4%. A small group, right? But now, because you've succumbed to these shaming lines, you've just lessened your chances of finding a mate. You've lessened your chances of basically having sexual intercourse with, you know? And I know for the most part, these pro-black shaming lines, especially the people who assail other men to be this way, I know they're just capping. I know they don't abide by that, because the biology is too strong, you know? A bad bee is a bad bee. Shout out to King Richards. Right? But if you are someone who you think of this I need to uphold the race. I need to, be pro-black, right? And hey, I have no disagreements with that if that's what you want to be. But I'm just saying you need to realize the situation that you're in, right? What I've noticed is that the people who want to be pro-black in that way, a lot of them are single well into their 30s, well into their 40s. A lot of black women out there who kind of had those ideas. And I think perhaps women have a different reality, right? Which we've spoken about many times, we understand. But what that has done, when you lessen your dating circle like that, this is the reality, particularly in the UK, particularly in Europe, right? So this is just one reason, another reason that increases the likelihood of a black incel. You're trying to, and it's funny because the guys who I speak to, the black guys who I speak to who might have these kind of pro-black leanings, when I ask about relationships, relationship experience, a lot of these guys say they don't have any, right? So you can see this is the intel that I pick up on, right? So you don't actually have experience, but then you also want to close yourself off to other groups of people because of these ideas of being pro-black. Like I've said in many streams before, man, the pro-black idea is going to be very hard to implement when you're a 3% minority group. Okay, and even within that 3% or whatever it is, it's already a splintered group. It's not really a real ethnic group. It's a mishmash of different people with the same colored skin, basically. Right, so that's my number 3, being shamed into dating out. Let me see what people are saying as I go on. Inflated ego in the house. It says most black men are loners for real. Yeah. So what am I saying with number 3? I'm not saying I will never ever, like I've said many times, I will never ever be that guy that's out there, oh yeah, go get you a Becky. Oh yeah, these other groups of women will treat you right. I will never ever be that level of naive. I'm not trying to promote any sort of IR stuff. I'm not here to promote, okay? I'm just here to inform. In a country, in this situation, if you impose those limitations on yourself, well, you're not gonna have a lot of opportunities to go out and form relationships. You're gonna hinder yourself, right? So that's number 3, being shamed into not dating out. Okay, I hope you're staying with me. I want to breeze through this. Number 4, okay, the 4th reason why I believe there are more black British incels. Okay, and this is a US term, right? So it could align with USA as well. But the Pookie versus educated black man, right? I know we don't. Pookie's not it's not a black British name, right? But we understand the ideas because we speak about a lot of this kind of division between black people of different mindsets, right? So we have the black people that want to cause havoc, create riots, who want to live a life of crime and want to, go against the law. And then you have the educated, the so-called educated. I'm not going to call them lame, but the so-called educated black man. The thing about this is that because of that division, you're now going to have less friends or less potential for friends because the pool of brothers, right, has been splintered. The brothers who could probably be a friend, one of your bros who you might go out with, and that will increase your prospects, and you have a social life and all of that. Because of that splinter within the black community amongst black men, this is something that will enhance the likelihood of inceldom, right? And most likely being a loner. There's a lack of trust already there between black men. It's almost now, it's very innate. I walk past some black guys and it's like there's some tension that builds up, and it's sad. You can just sense the tension amongst black men, right? So again, with a splintered a splintered group, lack of possibility of a bigger social circle, if any, and then that would just mean less opportunities to meet other people, right? Okay, Jesse says spot on. I appreciate that. I'm gonna try and keep it nice and concise from this point. Okay, number 5, halfway through it. This is top 10. Number 5, a negative childhood. Again, this is something we've spoken about many times. A lot of the core issues of certain problems that we face in the community tends to go back to family, right? And in this case, if you have a negative childhood, it could mean that you have a unsupporting family, right? And so sometimes we've compared with other communities, most notably the Asian community, and we've discussed, some of their tendencies, or some tendencies of arranged marriages, arranged relationships, a hookup between the family, right? If you don't have a supporting family, then this is one kind of arm for finding a likely mate that is missing, right? Right? So yeah, and if you have a negative childhood as well, perhaps friendships didn't blossom when you were young. Perhaps you were moved around a lot, different schools for whatever reason, right? And this is kind of linked to socio-economic situations as well, right? But that's number 5, a negative childhood, unsupporting family. The lack of arrangements from family, you know what I mean? But hey, we're halfway through. I know I'm being kind of swift, but I want this to be a discussion as well. But please do like the stream if you're enjoying it. If you're new, hit the subscribe. I'm sure you will like the other content on this channel, things that we discuss. Also, I'm gonna have to read 2 quite important articles with the next points, okay? Towards the end, before I open it up, because I find that's very important, some of the information from these articles, especially in relation to black men. Okay. Number 6 reason why I think black men in general are most likely to be incels. Okay. And number 6 is the lone wolf lifestyle. Okay. The promotion of the lone wolf lifestyle. And I know already this is one point that grates on a lot of people's nerves, and I get it. I understand it. Sometimes you have to be a lone wolf. Sometimes you're in an environment where people don't align with you mentally or spiritually. I get it. But like I've said again many times, this is not new. There are downsides to being a lone wolf. And again, you have the isolation, right? You have that limited social circle. Many black men out here, including myself in some cases, we're out here walking alone, right? We have to do things alone. And to be honest, that's one of the key strengths of being a lone wolf. A key strength is that you are able to take, Back in the day when you had a Cody, you know, someone who always wanted to follow you everywhere. Oh, come with me to West End, come with me to the shop. The fact that you can go out by yourself is an inner strength, right? When I tell people that sometimes I go to the cinema alone, they look at me like, what? Like, why? But for me, it's peace. But on the flip side, like isolation, you know, the lack of social circle, in some cases, communication skills might suffer, you know, and in some cases, this is a very contentious point, you know, mental afflictions might arise. You know, you might start talking to yourself, and it's linked with studies. And I know some of you want to reject it, but being alone comes with some real health issues, right? And that can create other problems as well, other mental issues that might affect you even when you want to put yourself out there and you know, try and find a mate, etc., etc. You know, but also there's, you know, being indoctrinated into following certain customs where the teacher doesn't even follow them. What do I mean? You know, what do I mean by that? Saying, for example, oh, women over 23 are, you know, use goods, you know, you should not entice a relationship with them. But then the person who's giving you that information is doing the exact opposite. Yes, the red pill. All these red pill content creators who say one thing but do the other. You know, enticing that kind of lone wolf lifestyle. Right? That's a problem. You know? So I always try to offer the balance, and not even just because of balance, not because of, you know, it's not just because of that, it's through experience actually, right? Believe it or not, I live what I talk, you know? So I can come back from my own experience and kind of relay the information that I felt, right? Even if it means, okay, people not effing with me, I lose subs, I don't mind that, as long as I'm relaying the truth, because this is a pivotal part of the Falcon Blizzard channel. You know, it's just raw honesty. Even if it makes me look vulnerable, it's just what I have to do. Okay, so at number 6, the lone wolf lifestyles is definitely one of those, definitely a reason why a lot of Black British men will go into inceldom. You know, following this code of conduct from content creators who do the opposite thing, who don't even follow their own information. Right? And number 7, a culture of staying in our comfort zone. Right? What do I mean by that? I believe that, and for myself, I can only speak for Black Africans with this, but I believe people of Black African descent, for example, are not being raised to go outside of their comfort zone, are not being raised to be to do new things out of the norm of quote unquote being African or being Black. And so it's messed up that we're like, you might do something and people will say, oh, you're doing white people stuff, for example. You know, if you're not going to parties, if you're not, I don't know, turning up, doing the stereotypical things, then you're probably acting white. You know, and how that relates to this is that, for example, if you don't want to be adventurous with your hobbies, with doing new things, or even with the desire to do new things, again, your social circle pool will be will not be as dynamic, right? I find that even small things like wanting to go for walks, just for simply going for a walk in the park. You know, a lot of black people, it seems, just don't understand why it will do that. You know what I mean? And often these things that are outside of our comfort zone is good for us. Going for a walk has myriad of benefits for the mind, for the body. You might go for a hike in a mountain or something like that. You know, do new things, you meet new people. Right? When I go fencing, when I tell people I go fencing, oh, what you doing? Why are you doing fencing? Ain't that a rich, posh, white person sport, you know? From grown-up people. Right? So this also goes into like a limited mindset. So I think a culture of staying in the comfort zone is one of those reasons why black men are prone to being incels. And again, it might be a shaming line as well. It amplifies, you know, people amplify this rhetoric of doing white people stuff. You know what I mean? At number 8, I'm going to open the line shortly, okay? At number 8, I believe another reason is arrested development. Arrested development. And what I mean by that is, for example, being a late bloomer, right? And again, there's many reasons why one can be a late bloomer, but I think that black people, particularly black men, are heavily affected by being a late bloomer. You know, it could be issues while in school, college, university. Maybe you had to drop out. Then maybe you had to change course and restart this. So, you know, you've delayed time, and that could be because perhaps you didn't have the assistance that you should have had. Right? You've delayed learning new skill sets. You've come into quote unquote game late in life. You've received certain information late in life. And again, this is linked to family. You might not have had, for example, that father in your life that is teaching you about finances or teaching you about a particular subject that he might have mastered. I'm not saying your mother couldn't do that, but again, if you're being raised in a single parent household, which is usually a single mother household, then time is limited, right? She's probably being overworked, probably has little time for you, you know? And the key thing with the delayed bloomer is that this really affects your self-esteem, man, when you're a late bloomer, you know? When you're like 35 and you're only just learning how to drive. And I think that in itself is something that really affects us British people. That might not especially affect US people because they have to travel long distances, right? It's a bigger country. But I believe that there's most likely a lot of men in general in the UK who are not even drivers, don't know how to drive well into later years, right? Or it could be, I don't know, you're 30 and you're going into apprenticeship at age 30. And in doing so, it's likely that your boss is like a little 23, 24-year-old, right? And so that dynamic is, again, one of those dynamics that can hurt self-esteem. You feel like, you know, you might feel almost like a kid, you know, like a junior at an older age. And of course, all of these things will potentially affect your finances. But most importantly, it's the self-esteem that gets bruised, man. And this is why it's very important for us to be tuned in, have goals, try to learn different things, read, right? Because I think this is one of those issues of the mind that not a lot of people talk about, right? So number 8 is being a late bloomer. Okay, at number 9. Okay, almost there. Number 9, why I think a lot of black British men are prone to being incels is holding on to childhood trauma. Okay, holding on to childhood trauma. And again, I know this might be a contentious issue, and I understand, because the way we are raised is not our fault. We don't have a choice in what household we are born into, right? So it's not our fault in all cases. But the thing is when you are unfortunately angst ridden, when you hold grudges, when stuff that you can't easily move on from, what I find is that this tends to bleed into other relationships, right? Like it's very easy to, for example, have a lack of trust in other people because you might have had a lack of trust in your parents, for example. I find that when you get used to holding grudges, it becomes second nature. So it's a tool that you might use when dealing with other people. You might have a very small capacity to deal with people. So you think cutting them off completely is a healthy and normal way of going about life, right? So you're very your fuse is short, right? And that is quite an extreme black or white way of dealing with people, which I think just doesn't help in the long run. When it links with that lone wolf mentality, and it definitely affects relationships with women as well. Unfortunately, like, what I've noticed is that if you try to discuss with women your bad upbringing and your kind of concerns with your single mother, for example, and she didn't do this, she didn't do that, she didn't do enough, they will look at you like, damn, man, there's a lot of unresolved conflict that you need to deal with, that you haven't dealt with, right? Because you should understand that one big component, and I don't want to be preachy with this, but one big component for women wanting to be in proper relationships, I'm not talking about 3 or 4s, I'm talking about serious women that might want family, might want to build stuff. A big component of that is also having a connection with your family, right? And if that is kind of blocked, right, it might affect your own relationship. You know what I mean? And then, all that expressing, like, it puts a lot of women in positions where they have to be shrinks, where they have to kind of help you to resolve your issues, which unfortunately isn't their business and isn't their fault. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying I have a solution, one solution fits all in this case, but like we've spoken about this before, there needs to be some resolution to this issue, to childhood trauma. I know some are not easier than others, but I mean, we can do our best to kind of work on them, right? And I've told many times the situation with my late stepfather, man. I know this very well, right? Cutting people off completely, like not even looking at them for years. Like, it's a great burden that can bleed into other avenues in our life. Right? So that's number 9. Holding on to childhood trauma might affect black men in terms of going into inceldom. Okay, and the last one, which I want to use an article to present this information. The last one, number 10, the 10th reason why I think black men are most likely to fall into inceldom is actually autism. Autism, being on the spectrum. Okay, and I've realized that you know, and this is not to shame anyone, but I've realized in communication that it seems like at least online, a lot of black people, a lot of black men have, you know, are probably on the spectrum. And sometimes they don't seem to know it, but I can tell by their kind of repetitive communication styles, you know, like beating the same drum over and over again. You know, obviously autism is no one's fault. You know, we don't press autism to be, you know, a part of our psyche, right? But there's some evidence that suggests that autism is higher in ethnic minority communities for a few reasons, you know, and I think it aligns very well because a lot of those reasons are socio-economic or having a general lack of support, right? People see certain behaviors and they just don't recognize it. They just think it's a personality trait. It could be, again, based on stereotypical views, probably racism, right? Let me present this article. There was a much more in-depth article that I found, but it was more so pertaining to America. So we'll use this article, man, from autism.org.uk. And it says, why are so many BAME autistic people not getting the support they need? I know there's people who obviously have much more experience on this. So I hope if you want to come on and go deep into that, that'd be very much appreciated. But let me just read out 5 key themes that came out of the discussion of why, let's say, black men in particularly, since we're talking about them, might not be getting their support for the autism, right? So one is challenges getting a diagnosis. Some participants consider levels of understanding of autism to be lower in their communities. So in the black community, for example, which may have delayed a diagnosis. Others said that teachers can fail to spot characteristics of autism due to incorrect assumptions about a child's behavior or language abilities, right? So a child could be acting a certain way, the teacher sees it but just thinks, oh, perhaps that's a black kid, so, you know, it's kind of probably a cultural kind of behavior trait, you know what I mean? Number 2, barriers to accessing support services. Parents talked about challenges understanding autism and knowing what services are available due to information often only being available in English. Few translation services and professionals' use of jargon. Okay, so there could be a language barrier with, you know, new immigrants into the country as well, which is a key point. Number 3, communication problems with professionals. Some families said they didn't feel confident dealing with professionals, or they felt professionals could be patronizing or lacking in cultural understanding. Others said that some people from BAME communities could hold suspicious attitudes towards professionals and authorities, which is a deep one. Right? There's a socio-economic link to that. It's kind of like when, you know, I don't know, maybe a black mother, you know, like when she's on the phone to a white person or to some sort of organization, kind of has to change her voice to kind of, you know, put on the quote unquote white speaking voice, right? So there's a level of, I guess, being uncomfortable speaking to certain people about it. Number 4, awareness and understanding of autism within communities. Closed communities can be an important source of support for people, but many participants reported coming across judgmental attitudes. Our charity was told that disability can be stigmatized in certain communities, right? Which is true, and sometimes blamed on parents. While some participants emphasized that their faith gave them strength, others spoke about a lack of support from faith groups and at places of worship. You know? So, you know, but, you know, and being religious is a key trait in the black community. So, you know, I can suspect that in some ignorant parents or people, they just look at these behaviors and just think, I don't know, it might be an evil spirit or something like that, right? And number 5, denial and isolation. Some families said they initially refused to acknowledge that their child was autistic. Others believe that their child's difficulties should remain private and not be discussed outside the home. Along with feelings of blame and shame, many said that these issues could lead to parents, carers, and siblings missing out on support and becoming socially isolated, right? And so this is why I believe autism in the Black community is another big reason as to why many Black men can fall into inceldom, right? It's like a misunderstanding. And it's an overall misunderstanding from the people closer to you who could support you and could help you in being introduced to other people, and people understand certain quirks that you might have, but it's misunderstood. All right. And so these are my 10 reasons just to back up why I think inceldom is most likely amongst Black men, particularly within the Black British community. Okay, and I've got one bonus one before I open up the lines. One bonus reason, and it's something that we've mentioned many times before, and that's the self-defeated mindset. And the thing about self-defeated mindset is that all the things that I've listed will or can culminate into having a low self-esteem. So it's like a cage, it's like everything is a trap. You can't, for example, be a late bloomer with a bad childhood, who is a lone wolf, who is an ethnic minority, right, and not have low self-esteem off rip. That low self-esteem will just go into a lack of self-belief. And this is the main thing that I see commonly: a lack of self-belief, self-worth. People don't trust one's own abilities, right? Or people don't believe that they are unique or special in any way. And even upon hearing that, I know some people just think that is hopeful. I get accused sometimes of being a hope guy, right? When I speak about my experiences in martial arts, which is very key to my mindset today, people find it hard to comprehend, because it's like, people just don't believe it, and I think that is the biggest issue, because you can only go as far as your mind can take you. If you don't believe you are worthy of certain relationships, or you don't believe you're worthy in some person's eye, then you won't be. If you think you're too short, you think you're too dark, like you think your nose is at a certain point, your lips are too big, and you think that's why people won't like you, then that's going to be the reality, right? And that overall self-defeated mindset will breed into things like paranoia, mental issues, and I want to end that off, I just want to read this one article about a study that finds there are traits that are linked to being an incel, traits like paranoia, and psychopathology issues. Okay, let me just read this before I open up the lines. I think it's quite vital. So this article was from last month, so 2023 article from a psychology website. I know a lot of you might think, psychology, okay, cool, but I think it's worth a read, okay? The personality traits associated with incels are linked to severe psychopathological, I butchered that. Psychopathological issues, according to new research published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine. Okay. Now, again, I know a lot of you might think, oh, this is just mainstream stuff, but I ask you to at least take it with a pinch of salt, And an incel, or involuntary celibate, refers to a member of an online subculture of individuals who feel deprived of meaningful companionship and sex. Many of these individuals resent women for rejecting them romantically and sexually. Okay, so I know on that point, a lot of people will say, oh yeah, that's a shame and line. And I partially agree, but unfortunately, I sometimes see that, there's like a resentment from, I don't know, school days, like the girl from the school that rejected, and people feel a certain way about that, even into their adulthood. Unfortunately, some individuals within this subculture have even turned into violence. Okay, we know all about that. Although many people are quick to condemn incels for their views, understanding the complexities behind this growing subculture could help to prevent future harms, which I agree with. Okay, so it goes on to talk about the person doing the research. Okay, the researchers use the online platform Qualtrics to survey a sample of 770 male participants. The survey included an assessment known as the Incel Trait Scale. The participants were shown a list of 20 traits and asked to indicate which describe them. The traits included characteristics such as excluded, scorned, unattractive, defeated, hateful, and resentful. Okay. So the researcher, Italian name, which I'm going to butcher, and his colleagues found that those who scored higher on the Incel Trait Scale tended to also score high on measures of paranoia, anxiety, and depression. I mean, let me ask you guys in the chat, man, what do you think? Do you think the people who you come across, or maybe even yourself, if you feel like you are this, you might be in this zone, do you think that incels come across as paranoid or with anxiety or depressed? Press a 1 if you think that's true. In addition, the incel traits were associated with a fearful attachment style. In other words, those who scored higher on the scale were more likely to agree with the statement, quote unquote, I am comfortable without close emotional relationships. It is very important to me to feel independent and self-sufficient, and I prefer not to depend on others or have others depend on me. Right? The researcher said the findings indicate that incel people struggle with their condition and they feel that women are responsible for that and they are suffering, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is the common kind of thing where it's like the mainstream media wants to try to, antagonize the quote unquote incel, right? But I think it is vital to bridge the links between things like paranoia and anxiety, right? And this is mainly because this is sometimes what I see in communication, right? When I speak to some guys who might be falling under this label. But anyway, I'm rambling, man. I'm rambling, and it's time to open up the lines if anyone wants to come up. Let's see. So if anyone wants to come up, feel free to hit the link. I'm going to place the link in the chat box now. Okay, so I see just 1s and mostly 2s. Okay, cool. We can discuss those 2s and why you guys feel like that if you're coming up. Oh damn, I missed the super chat. Apologies for that. 1 second, let me just get this link out there. So if you want to call in, link is now in the chat. I'm just going to paste it into the description. And pin it to the top. So yeah, again, it's a different time streaming, so it might have messed up your I don't know, it's just a different time, right? So apologies for that last minute switch, but I don't think it's too bad. Let me just get a few things sorted. Okay, I'll pin that up there. And let me just amend the description so you can come on here. Okay, cool. So we can't go too long tonight. I'm gonna say at least for about an hour we can discuss this issue. Okay, I think everything's good. So yeah, I mean, what we want to understand is if this is true. If it's true that black British men in particularly are prone to being incels, and if any of the list that I've mentioned is right or wrong, right? Or if you have any other reasons why as well, you know? So again, I've discussed, just to remind you, I've discussed things like beauty standards in the West, living as an ethnic minority, being shamed into not dating out, you know, the Pookie versus educated black man argument, the negative childhood, the lone wolf lifestyles, the culture of staying in comfort zones, being a late bloomer, holding on to childhood trauma, and autism. So any of these talking points, let's discuss it. Feel free to discuss it. If anyone wants to hop on, again, the link's in the chat and the link's pinned to the description, pinned to the chat in the description. I've spoken for too long, man. So let's have an open discussion, man. So first in was Jesse. Jesse, man, how you doing this evening?
I am good. I'm very stressed, but I managed to come on. Just a lot.
I appreciate that, man. It's good to have you on.
Yeah. A lot of the reasons that you talk about is very spot on. Through my life, those were a lot of the reasons you talk about inceldom is some of the stuff that I actually had to deal with. So what you're saying, what your points are, is pretty solid. And before anyone thinks that, no, I'm not an incel. But
hey, to say that, man, because I think I need to say this as well. A lot of these points affected me as well, man. So I'm not trying to come here to be this one incel. I think, to be honest, all black men are prone to being quote unquote incel. In the West, I think all of us is prone to, if we want relationships, not having those relationships come easy. You know, finding it hard to bridge the gap and to just basically link up. I think we've all been in that position, man.
Yeah, because, you know, some of the reasons, only if there was a list where I could look at it, I could pinpoint most of the things. But, you know, what I see with a lot of these incels is a lot of it does align to your reasons. For example, no father in the home. I had to deal with that. And then no father in the home also leads to a delay in development. Right. That's another issue that I kind of had, but I managed to mitigate most of it, but it was a very hard effort, right? So I'm about 31, but I do feel that there's still a few shortcomings that I still have that I need to improve on before I could actually say, yeah, I'm there. And the stuff that I had to deal with is something that average human didn't have to deal with, right? Things from being diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, my father basically leaving me at a very young age. I think it's about 10 or 9 years old, where he moved to Grenada. He's passed away now. That's why I'm talking about this. And basically, yeah, I went through a lot of traumatic experiences, and I had to basically get the professional help, the therapy that I needed, and I also had to do some self-development along the way. Also, I feel, you know, like you said regarding the the black pill stuff, that is absolutely toxic to the mind. I highly recommend people stop watching so excuse my language, because it really heats me up, right?
It's real talk.
It really heats me up when I see these people and I know what these idiots are doing online, right? They're just trying to profit off men's victimhood and suffering, right? And this is what these pillars flipping do, right? What they do is they feed into the man's victimhood, right? And basically make profit off it. This is what these pricks do, right? And it pisses me off, right? I can't believe when I was really, really younger that I fell for this shit, right? And the other thing is like the red pill stuff. I will say the red pill at the beginning was something different to what it was now, right? What the red pill was in the early days, right? When you had the MGTOW monks, so on and so forth, it was all about self-refinement. It was all about understanding the pitfalls of being a man and the pitfalls of what the modern day society offers and the gynocentrism that is going on. That was what the red pill was. Now, what the red pills now became in late 2021, 2022, or even 2020, right? You have these, female content creators who come into these spaces basically feeding into the male victimhood, right? And giving an unbalanced, let's say, opinion on things and literally not giving anyone solutions in regards of what the problem actually is and how they could solve it. So they're in a constant loop, right?
And I think a big issue, sorry to cut you, bro. I think a big issue is that, when profit is involved, then people are gonna be prone to just speaking in a monotonous way, right? So what I mean by that is, for example, that stereotypical RP guy or whoever who, got dragged to the cleaners, quote unquote, had a bad divorce, right? They don't mention, all they mention is the bad parts that the woman played, but they don't mention their shortcomings. They don't mention, for example, I got married at 25 and I didn't have my stuff together, and for some reason I thought having 2 kids while I was football coach, is a good idea. And then the inevitable happens. But a balanced approach to that would be, yes, talking about the pitfalls of marriage, cool, but then also having self-ownership and talking about your shortcomings, right? And this is what I think a lot of these guys fail to do. And when they fail to do that, like a lot of guys who are listening in, especially when they're young and impressionable, all they hear is, oh, women do this, women do that, women do that. And they don't take on that self-improvement kind of mantle. Right? It's like, good as I am, I'm a man. You should be doing this for me. You should be feminine. Like, that's what I see, man.
Right. I see that spot on. And my issue is, and I'm going to say this regarding some, not all, some of the passport bros, right? What I'm starting to see, right? And no offense to them, right? Is a lot of these guys haven't fully developed themselves to the possibly best they can be before doing this. Right? I'm not saying going overseas is a bad thing. What I'm saying is you better be your best version of yourself before you go over there, right?
Absolutely.
And and what I am starting to kind of see, not all, is that I see that they are trying to find a shortcut that doesn't exist, right? Now, the reason why I say this is because there's a few people who, I've seen a few, I'm not going to say any names, who are, let's say, they're not, some of them are just very socially awkward. Right. And they can't pick up, some of them can't pick up on body language. There's literally there's some women's body language that literally shows that they're about to finesse this guy. Right. Like you can literally see it in some of the videos. Right. And, I'm not discouraging people to travel, but you've got to travel for the right reasons. Right?
Okay, bro. Okay. We're gonna bombard that topic in the second round, yeah. But great points for the opener. Let me just get these other brothers in, and then we'll go ham on all of that, okay? But salute to Jesse for the opener. I appreciate that. I forgot to shout out Uchicha Strider, man. I appreciate the $4.99 super chat, man. He said, I think the majority of the time, the road to success is a lonesome road for a black man, at least when it comes to relating with other black men. Hey, absolutely, I agree. I agree. I agree. But, I think a slight pushback would be, can a man even be successful by himself completely? Right? When we think about all these startups, Facebook, YouTube, it's always been a group of people who, I don't know, might have met up in university, came together, many different minds working together. Okay, you're good at marketing, you be the marketing guy. You're good at the sales, you be the sales guy. I think, the black men that just want to go it alone, like it's a very handicapped journey, right? But salute to Uchicha Strider for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. And as always, man, if you want to show support, please do hit the super chat only if you can. But I do appreciate the likes and the comments. They are very meaningful too. And feel free to jump on the panel if you want to express your views as well. Okay, next in the building was Diego Ife, man. So we go to Diego Ife, then we go to Chicha Strider, and then we'll open up the discussion a bit more. So Diego, man, how you doing this evening?
I'm good, bro, man. How you doing?
Good, man. I can't complain, man. Can't complain. Another Thursday, bro. Good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Good to be on.
Anytime. Good. So, I mean, I know we can go so many ways with this, but what comes to mind with regards to the likelihood of there being more black incels over other ethnicities?
So this is the thing. I'm not convinced that there are. Whether that's percent, I don't believe there are, to be honest. But the traits that were listed, the list that you read off earlier, I do think there are guys who may not necessarily have trouble accessing women for whatever reasons, right? But they may exhibit those traits that, apparently are, consistent with being an incel. So, for instance, we spoke about the tension that certain black guys feel
between black guys.
Yeah. And for me, I've noticed, just to to kind of embellish that, I noticed as I've got older that it seems to have got worse. Does that make sense? I would say that when I say kid, teenager, younger adult, you'd have, in my experience, you'd either if you crossed, it was either somewhere between either you have indifference or benevolence. And of course, you have those people that were a bit hostile on site, but now it's majority on site. And my belief is that I think popular culture, and certainly among this kind of idea, the fictive black community, it doesn't condemn that kind of tension. Do you understand? It doesn't promote the idea that such behavior needs to be challenged, needs to be rooted out. It doesn't. In fact, if anything, some of these women that these guys want the validation of so desperately want to see them and other guys like take lumps out of each other. They get off on it. And so I think some guys do it because it makes them feel like, if I can make him intimidated, I'll feel more manly. So, sometimes if a guy tries to engage another guy in a screwing contest, or what Americans will say, mean mugging, the first person that might break the eye contact is seen as in that person's mind is seen as the one that lost. So for some guys, those petty gains gives them a full sense of masculinity, in the absence of having proper, rites of passages to pass over into manhood. I think that certainly, I think that not just the fictive black community, but maybe popular cultures glorified it. I think that younger boys observed other older men doing it to one another, maybe not to the same degree as we've seen it, but they saw it. And so they decided to emulate it as they got older. But, there's this idea that what the elders do in moderation, the youth will do in excess. So what has happened is what was before a little kind of I don't know if you want to call it, let's just say that the hyena energy has flourished. And I think you can't put it just down to one thing, but it's that. I also think that when I say feminism, I'd say more so, this whole kind of discord, this gender discord, and this idea that, you know, for some women at least anyway, black males are the bane of their existence. Some of these guys have internalized this. And so what it is that when they see another guy, because they don't feel value in themselves because they've not attained a level of self-assurance, they project their sense of, you know, their lack of self-worth, if you will, onto other black guys. So on the side, it's like, hey, you ain't shit. Just straight up. Already concluded. So if they see that you're about something, they'll now want to, do you understand what I'm trying to say? They'll now feel that it's an obligation to tear you down. They won't see you as a collaborator. I can't even say it's a competitor because they're not exactly trying to mobilize. But the thing is, some guys don't grow out of this mindset. There's no inflection point where they're like, listen, I need to fix up. Some guys are pushing middle age and they have this energy. You know, I've seen guys online, I've seen guys offline. The way they speak about other black men, it's almost as if like they don't value them unless they need a favor. And then when they do, it becomes a strong spirit of entitlement. You understand? So when I heard you know, like reel off like the, you know, that list, many thoughts came to mind. I'm not sure I'll be able to cover all of them right now, but
that's all right. We can take the second round.
Yeah.
I can recap.
Yeah. But I mean, when I think of incels, I mean, going back to the, you know, to the main question of whether there's more, I'm not convinced there are, because, you know, what I do know though is that there's a lot, we're obviously in an oversexed society, and I think we've discussed on previous streams where some guys, you know, have taken to messing with transformers because it's preferable to fat. They look at it as more preferable to fat, whatever you call it. And some guys have, you know, I guess because we're living in an age where I don't even know how I'll put this.
So are you kind of saying that because the access to having sex is easier, therefore the being an incel is less likely or probably not even possible?
I feel like there's extremes, because if we're talking about black guys, some guys have found a sweet spot. They're just an average guy, but they know who to single out and to secure the deal with, right? So you got that. You've obviously got guys that are about something that have the pick, and they have guys that they can't even buy look in the direction. And maybe going back maybe a decade, the women who would have been up for coupling with them or dealing with them now think they're better than them because of this volatility in the sexual marketplace. Remember how I said that, like, not just the dating apps, but this, shall I say, the you know, like the IG and all this kind of stuff. A lot of men are thirstier. There's women who wouldn't be getting the attention now, or, you know, rather they wouldn't be getting the attention back then. Essentially, they get more attention now. So you see some women, guys are getting fetishes. So what's happened is that women that were strong 4s, 5 on a good day, now think they're better than guys that sometimes might even be more attractive than them. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that it's a bit of a mess. You understand? But I think that even within that, I think there's more. If you look at, like, I'm not being funny, but you look at Asian guys, you look at like white guys, for example, I think there's more incels among them, honestly. Because it's not all the white guys that have that kind of, I don't want to use the word jock, but you know, the kind of self-assurance, built well, has that kind of charisma. Obviously, there's a few of them, but a lot of them are middle of the road. Who does give hope to the hopeless are obviously the divestors and swirlers and the ones that are closeted, who automatically think that anything which is white is the best. So you do have some white guys that punch above their weight for that reason, but for the white guys, I ain't getting none. And the Asian guys, I think, put it like this, I hope I'm not being all over the place, but I think there's more Asian male incels than there are black ones. And I can't 100% prove that, but I'll tell you why I say that real quickly. I've seen, you know, like on King Rich's, on some of his older streams, before obviously he expanded and built out, see the current model he has. I see Asian guys, some obviously he has a few Asian males and probably has quite a few that are, you know, fans of his or like supporters. And you're saying how, why are you black guys complaining? I know from what you're saying that these women aren't easy, but you lot can't have it as bad as us. And I'm like, huh? And I started to think about it. And I'm like, take aside all the ways that black people romanticize Asians as being very economically prudent and, you know, forward thinking and that. Are these guys at the forefront of mass female, you know, in terms of appeal? Are they the avatar? That they're not. That's just the reality of it.
Okay, man. Great points as always, Diego. Diego, we'll flesh a lot of those out in the second round. Yeah, you've put some great points out there. So salute to Diego in the house. And finally, for an opener, let's go to Uchiha Strider, man. Sorry if I'm butchering the name. I know it's familiar. How are you doing this evening?
Don't watch it. I'm all good, man. I'm all good, innit?
Hey, good to hear you, man. I remember you. You know.
Good. Yes, Uchiha, innit? But everyone call me Strider anyway, innit?
Okay, Strider. For real.
You get me? But first of all, even though I've been on before, I just want to say, Falcon, big up to you, innit? For building a platform whereby black young men as ourselves can gather and talk about issues that are affecting us significantly, innit?
Hey, I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that. I'll try, man.
No, it's real talk, innit? Because that super chat I sent about, like, road to success being lonesome for a black man, yeah? So, and by the way, some of the points Diogo made, I could just literally spin off some of them as well, which I'm hope to do so very shortly, innit? Especially with regards to mid, as the new word is, mid women thinking they're better. A phenomenon which I find absolutely disgusting, innit? But anyway, let me leave that to one side for a second.
We're going to open that up in the second round too.
All right, cool. So, with regards to the question about black men being incels, yeah, like Diego said, Diego raised a very good point in that Asian men have their own madnesses as well, innit? I think I haven't looked at the statistics, but I think on Tinder, apparently they're the least swiped on men, if I'm not mistaken. All right. So obviously they would have their madnesses, and I hear that, yeah. For me personally, with regards to black males and inceldom, if you like, I wouldn't class myself as an incel personally, because I do all right with girls, just all right, innit? I'm from London, went uni up in Liverpool. Being a Londoner in Liverpool, it was a madness as soon as I realised the little bit of source we Londoners have in these different parts of the country, yeah? So I'm not an incel in that sense whatsoever. However, what I do struggle with is that solitude, that road of solitude black man sometimes would find himself on when he's trying to get somewhere. I live in the outskirts of Manchester, yeah, a town outside Manchester. And I went to my local Jamaican shop, and there's a guy running it, roughly my age, like dark skin like me, actually from your neck of the woods, Peckham, but he's lived up here for a while, yeah. I saw like a flyer in the shop about like a dance, yeah, that I'm thinking I might go check out, see some nice girls and what have you. And then he said to me, to be honest, I don't even like being around many Rusties myself. He's Jamaican. And I just interpreted that as he doesn't like being around many black people, which I found very interesting because I can relate to that so well because of that trust factor. There's sometimes darknesses and
when you said that, I wanted to ask you, like, off rip, like you know, you mentioned environment. So I was gonna say, do you think this solitude is imposed by the environment, or is it something that is self-imposed due to these trust issues?
Good question.
Because, you know, a lot of the points, which I think is very valid, is that, look, you're a very small ethnic minority in the first place. Then people travel to like these towns and cities with even less people. You know, London is definitely not an example of a typical British city, right? In terms of how many black people are there. So is it the environment, or is it something, or is it both? You know, the environment and also having trust issues with other so-called brothers.
Very good question, and I'll answer this from my experience. Yeah, so I'm from Lewisham originally. Yeah, grew up there, went to school in Croydon, and I had people there for a long time, long time after I left London. However, what I observed was, as I started to like try and, as I call it, escape the matrix, which for me means not having to work for people and rely on people. When I would speak to like my boys from back in the day about certain things, I started to find that being around them became awkward. It's like we no longer had that thing that connected us, which when I look back on it was not, I don't want to say immaturity, because I still want to chase girls and I still like playing computer games and chilling and that. It's just that other things take the forefront. And if I can't really relate to people on that, how are we going to make money? How are we going to move forward? Right. How are we going to get out of these situations? If you can't relate to people on that side of things, for me personally, I don't really know how you could par with them. Because if it comes to the case that I start eating and you're in the same place, as my brother said in the Jamaican shop only a few hours ago, there starts to be like hatred starts to show itself. So even if you're in London, in around your people, you may find yourself being isolated because it's unsafe for you to be around certain people anyway. That's my hypothesis. What do you think about that?
Right. Hey, great point. Great points, bro. And I think, I mean, it's both the environment, the situation, the circumstance, and also this kind of legacy issue amongst black men, you know, and this is why I just consider now like a self-imposed lone wolf lifestyle to just be a detriment to black men, you know what I mean? Like in particularly because of this situation. Like you be the lone wolf, but you have to know it's going to come with severe like disabling traits, right? But we're going to flesh out on that, man. I appreciate that, Strider, man, for the opener. You know, all of you have presented great points that we can open up, expand on. So salute to everyone in the building. Again, if you're enjoying the stream, please do hit the like. Consider jumping on the panel if you've got things to say. But okay, now in this round, feel free to make a conversation. You can jump in any time, right? But I want to ask this because it was brought up. So do we think the inceldom, and I guess particularly with black men, is fueled by mid-range looking black women who basically just think that they deserve more in a man, right? So that's basically kicking out the average black man, right? And he's not good enough. So do you think this is part of the reason why there could be an increase in inceldom and long?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think many of us have observed some of the indicators of this growing delusion. The what's that movement now called? You know, the body positive movement,
right?
Where you know women have tried to subvert men's, you know, usual taste in women and tried to almost guilt them into finding women attractive that they wouldn't otherwise find attractive. There's the whole discourse on colorism and featureism and texturism, and also that's another. So these are almost like ugly girl reparations that many are trying to get access to. Right. What's happened is because of social media, like obviously the filters, as someone rightfully said in the comment section, and other embellishments. Also, there's the makeup, like, you know, fake up sorcery, you know, aesthetic sorcery and that. What it's done is it's created what I call sexual marketplace volatility. So the women who of yesteryear, or females, would not have really got so much of a head turn, have now been able to transform, and they've got almost like an artificial privilege. Because men love nyash as much as they do nowadays, you got women that now you got nyash privilege, which in some cases can transcend traditional privilege. I think I gave this analogy before, it might have been a bit like how, you know, sometimes in the stock market where you have volatility and some people, even if they're retail investors or traders, they're able to benefit from arbitrage. You understand? They're able to basically you get my point. They sell at the top of the market. You can apply that when it comes to, you know, these looks these women that think they're better than they are, and the sexual marketplace. Because of the lust and the hunger that's been awoken in a lot of men, these women, in some cases, can actually get a man at the top of the market. And in some cases, their looks ain't saying much. Their personality is even less. But
do you think that this issue is accentuated within the black community? Do you think it's black women that
definitely
have the highest kind of delusions of, expectations than other women?
Yeah.
I would say
I 100%. 100%. And the reason, I'll pass it on in a moment, but the reason why I say that is, you see, with other people, right? What it is that, how do I put this? I believe that the women in the fictive black community or communities believe they're entitled to a man. They don't believe that it's a privilege or a blessing to get a solid man. They think it's an entitlement. So the reason why they do whatever it is they want, by and large, they might get BBLs and do whatever it is to maybe hope to attract a certain kind of man that might be at the peak of his powers in whatever he's doing for a living. But by and large, they don't really care what the average guy or even maybe above average guy thinks. They do what they want. And then when it becomes manifestly obvious that it's not worked out for them, then they now start taking, that's what informs a lot of this divester rhetoric. These men ain't serious. I know the fear, which I think is kind of like paranoia when it comes to passport bros, because there's so many people that can be passport bros. Essentially, what these women are seeing is the prospects of having that entitlement, which is really delusion, being fulfilled and met, is diminishing. So that is what that's what it comes down to. So a lot of men haven't taken time out. I'm talking about the men that are these whole kind of like, dick policing. They try to call you a coon and all this other stuff. Notice a lot of these guys are like mouthpieces for these women, because they, to use, like, I feel like if you're to buy into the idea that there's a community and there's unspoken obligations, it's almost like taking a blue pill in the Matrix. You understand? It requires you to take a regular dosage of delusion in order to if you now start looking at things critically, the idea of this community where people pull together, it capitulates because the evidence just doesn't exist. So essentially what I'm saying is, these guys don't realize that this is entitlement. That's the reason why they think, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to better myself. And sure, no, men should better themselves, don't get me wrong, but they feel that they have to almost ascend the Himalayas in order to get basic respect. And that's not what it is. I'll pass it on.
Absolutely.
I think, Schreider, did you want to say something a few minutes ago?
Yeah, there were a few things, but just to touch on what Diego was saying, that entitlement is absolutely horrendous. Now, the reason why, I mean, as King Richards has said on a number of his videos, one example for why I think it's more difficult for black men, due to that delusion, mind you, okay? Like, I'm a productive individual. I'm on my path. I consider myself to be in like my wilderness, going from one place to another. That's why I'm in this small town, innit, doing what I need to do before I can go from Kaioken to Super Saiyan, for example. You'll see, for example, paying off mixed race chicks, and the reason why I'm using mixed race in this case as an example is because mixed race girls can be brought up in white areas and brought up in black areas because of the nature of their parents, if that makes any sense. I think it's more likely that you will see a piff mixed race girl with a standard white brother than a piff mixed race girl with a standard black brother. In fact,
why is that,
bro? But if I'm honest with you, and this is where I've started to think the perception of black men, the negative perception of black men, it transcends black women. I sometimes think it might be women in general that we're just at the bottom of the totem pole for a number of obvious reasons. For example, perhaps betrayal in the media, but others that I wouldn't be able to mention. And that's something that, and I'm not going to lie to you, I'll be 100% honest. And I never used to think like this, but it's almost started to get to me a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
What way?
Listen, I'm not a hater yet. I'm not a hater in it, like.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, okay. For example, so I'm into property and I rent rooms to Asian, Indian doctors come in here to study to work in the NHS. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At this moment in time, I have 3 female doctors. Yeah, bro. The way they move to me and respond to me and what have you, bro, they're fresh from India, you know. Came from India yesterday, bro. It's similar to the same. What's the word I'm looking for? Is it contempt? It's like contemptuous the way they respond to me, even though in some ways, well, a lot of ways,
You are on a higher socio-economic level.
Thank you, bro. Not even just socio-economic, bro. I'm more educated than them. I'm not that I tell them. I don't sprout this out because I don't really need to. But bro, I'm at university now. I'm doing a PhD now. I'm about to complete on my second property. But the way females move to me is like, wow, it's completely lopsided. That market volatility that Diego alluded to, it hits the nail on the head, in my opinion. And so just to touch on very quickly before I pass it on, I sincerely believe that all of this that we're experiencing is actually by design, though. I sincerely believe it's by design. Although I'm a sinner, yeah, I do look at things from a biblical perspective. In that, not big.
Well, you're a sinner.
I always say that because I don't want people to think I think I'm self-righteous when I bring the Bible into it. So I always preface it with I'm a sinner and I got a lot of things to work on. But that doesn't detract from what the truth is. You see what I'm trying to say? Or what I believe the truth to be. In that, this world is run by Satan, and the same way that he went to Eve first because of her emotional way of viewing things is the same way through feminism they went to women to gas their heads. And now like Adam, the same way Adam followed Eve is the same way we're responding to their fuckeries. Okay. So I sincerely believe it's by design.
Okay, great points, bros, man. But I want to ask Jesse this then, because he had this in his opener and I in part agree for the most part that do we think as a panel, but to Jesse, that the red pill kind of content and perhaps in by extension the passport bro content has kind of added to potential inceldom, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? What are the red pill in particularly doing to kind of add fuel to the fire to this situation?
All right. When I mean the red pill, right? I'm talking about a certain version of the red pill, right? I'm not talking about the old school red pill where it was about self-refinement. It was about the gynocentrism of society and the certain pitfalls, right? I'm not talking about that red pill. That was probably in the 2010s, right? What I'm talking about, early 2010s. I'm talking about the red pill now, which has been, let's say, bastardized. It's being used as being corrupted by some of these female like content creators that come into the space, right? Now, what I mean is, what it does is, because it gives you a sense of comfort and it gives you a sense of feeding into your victimhood, right? Basically, what it does, it keeps you in a sense of comfort, in the sense of that you don't need to improve. The issue isn't me, it's them, right? So if the issue is me, it's them, then you're not going to see yourself as an issue, and then you're not going to improve, right? So that's what the red pill's doing now. I don't have an issue with the red pill. I have an issue with the version of the red pill which it once was, right? Because back in the day, there were certain things in the red pill which I thought was very, very helpful. For example, don't get a woman pregnant, right? At a young age when you're not financially secure, right? That's what they used to talk about in the past. They used to talk about marriage and understanding the ramifications of marriage and understanding the pitfalls of marriage before you get into it. Basically giving you a choice, right? Understanding that there's certain rights that men have that are let's say, inadequate. For example, fathers' rights, that, you know, the men's right activists happen. And you're seeing alienation with some fathers. You know, this isn't just a black thing. This is a global thing, black, white, Asian, whatever, where fathers are not allowed to see their children based on certain laws and alienation, right? That's what the red pill was at the beginning. Now, what the red pill has become now is a grift and money-making scheme where we get a whole bunch of men who are clearly seen as invisible, right? Who don't have any agency in the world and don't have any, let's say, reciprocal, how can I really put it? Reciprocal attention from women, right? Put it that way, right? And what has happened is what the red pill's done and what these female content creators have, right? The big content creators you know of, right? I'm not going to say their name. You will know who those individuals are. They are very supervised towards men. And when they're supervised towards men, I don't actually point at men's shortcomings, right? Which, yes, I do admit the dating standard, the dating market is very hyper competitive and it's very difficult, right? I'm not denying that. But what it does, it gives you a sense of self-comfort. So where you could be fat, you could be lazy, you could be out of shape, you could have no job and think, oh, it's just the red pill. You know, that's the reason why women don't want to deal with me. Right? That's basically what it is. Right? I don't have no beat.
And that's where I am, man, because on the one end, I guess I'm caught in the middle somewhere. On the one end, I can understand that, you know, things like feminism and women having, you know, the body positivity movement is a classic example of having an inflated sense of, you know, I don't want to say self-worth, but, you know, your positioning in a dating market, right? But on the other side, yes, there is, when we want to go on to say, oh, it's the women, you know, it's just them, it presents a stage where it seems like men should, you know, should not improve or don't have areas where they need to fix up. Exactly. So I'm kind of caught in the middle of like what?
I'll be honest, Falcon. So sorry to cut you there. I really don't think the majority of the red pill does, if you like, merely apportion blame onto the women. I think a lot of red pill content does advocate men to get themselves in situations whereby, as King Richard would say, get power and have power. Do you see what I'm saying? So because of that, I think a lot of red pill content does suggest that men sort themselves out. But despite that sort of sorting of themselves, I think even productive quality men are experiencing issues. To be honest, I think it's a spectrum. I think we experience a spectrum of issues. So, for example, guys who may be rated, if you like, from 4s to 8s, they would all be able to relate to red pill content, if you like, but to varying degrees. Do you see what I'm saying? So even if you are self-improving, you still experience some of these issues.
Yeah,
so no,
I hear that. I can understand that.
100%. But, you know, I agree with what Strider is saying. But in regards of King Rich's, I don't ever remember him saying that he was red pill. I remember he would say, right, and I'm talking about before he got signed by Just Funny Things, right? I remember he used to just say most of the time, I'm not red pill, I'm not MGTOW, I'm not this, I'm just someone who's speaking based off my own experience.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's what King Rich's was. So I don't really think King Rich's represents the red pill. Yes, he may be with Just Pearly Things now regarding the red pill, but I don't really associate King Rich's with the red pill. Do you know what I'm saying? But he's more of a guy that speaks based off experiences and the things that he's gone through and basically solutions. That's why King Rich's, that's why I got respect for that guy, because I used to watch some of his calling live calling shows, right? Even I've been on them, right? And he's actually given on real time solutions in regards to certain people's problems, and he has done that. Now, I can't say if he's done that on Just Pearly Things' show. The reason why is because I don't really watch her. I'm not gonna go into the reasons why, but I'd rather watch a King Rich's, I'd rather watch Auntie Jenny or a Sarah Garvey more than actually Just Pearly Things, because I feel they've actually lived it. That's just really my opinion. But that's just the reason why, and I think that's really the issue in terms of what is creating these incels, right? I have empathy for incels, right? By the way, right? I don't like how the media is trying to turn them into these enemies, right? What I think it really is they have been basically put in a rock and a hard place, right? And they don't have a guide, they don't have a solution, they don't have the agency, or they don't.
What's the rock and what's the hard place in your opinion?
Rock and a hard place is, right? So if I was to put a black incel, right? Into
That's a good one, though. Black cell. That's a good hashtag.
I put them into their equation, right? First, they on one side, they don't have. They probably come from a really messed up background, right? No, predominantly, probably in a predominantly single household, right? No positive role models, right? And they don't have any agency or any information that they could basically bring, right? Now, they're on the other side. There's a side where they are trying to comfort it, trying to like kind of mother them to a extent where they're in a place of comfort, to the sense that they don't want to improve, right? And then basically society's at top just bringing down men, right? So that's what's going on, right? Now, I'm gonna say this, right? And it comes to a point where their self-esteem is completely destroyed, right? And they don't have any self-esteem or things of that nature, right? Which is understood. But the reality is, in the end of the day, even though this has happened, they have to put in the work. That's the reality. The reality is they're still going to eventually have to put in the work, right? Unfortunately, in this situation, the cards you've been dealt with sucks. Look, the cards that I've been dealt with sucked, right? I, at one point, was technically an incel at a very young age, right? Because of the situations I was brought into, right? No father, born on the autistic spectrum, but I still managed to achieve a lot of great things in life, right? And I managed to have relationships.
And I think sorry to cut you, bro. I think that's a key point, though. It's a key point. The key point is because a lot of people in the chat are saying, well, the RP content creators do routinely talk about self-improvement. But I guess for me, it's the balance. It's the scale. How much of it is self-improvement and telling men what they need to do? How much of it is women do this, women do that, feminism? You know, what scale are you? You're average at best, you know? And I understand, of course, one of them is going to sell more, but the reality is, if that is your kind of business protocol, then at the end of the day, you're still going to discuss one thing out of those two more than the other, right? Which leads into women do this, women do that, women do this, women do that.
Yeah, Diego, that's something. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So yeah, I was gonna say that Jesse did me a favor by because of something I was gonna say. You mentioned about the what the media are trying to do with this whole kind of incel rhetoric. To be honest, the reality I look at it is mostly business, right? And the so-called incels, which I think it's a theory rather than a nailed-on absolute fact. Okay, I think it's very cynically motivated by the media. There's a lot that's going on in the world right now. Much of the consumer spending, that women engage in particular, is off the back of men. Marriage rates are already plummeting in general. There's this study that came out, I forget which bank it was, I'm not sure if it was Goldman Sachs Equity Research, one of these banks. They said that it's like 45% of women are going to be single within the next decade or thereabouts. So they're looking at this group of men, and there's many men that have become disenchanted with the whole dating market. They are favoring a life of solitude, not necessarily because they absolutely want that, but because they believe that those are the cards that they're being dealt. So they're hoping it's almost like one last, should I say, throw the dice. They're trying to shame these guys into submission. You understand? That's ultimately where it comes down to, and for these guys to accept their station in life, that they should slave away for women that are at best strong force. So that's what it comes down to, because if you now have a situation where you can't really gauge and predict male behavior, then of course you can imagine the kind of question marks that it will kind of attract. Couple of things off the back of that. I think when you read the article, there was a statement that there's a propensity for violence for those that are incels, and that's extreme. If they're going to pull out those that go shooting up schools, say across the pond or whatever, these are extreme cases.
Absolutely, and that's why I didn't want to put any attention to that point, because I know what the media are trying to do at that point.
Yeah.
They're trying to liken what's his name, that Jake guy from Plymouth, to like everyone, and these are just isolated.
It's a quantum reaching for the stars. R. Kelly, I Believe I Can Fly kind of reach. It is beyond, it's off the chain. Do you understand? So I find that there is problematic. And then to something that is it Uchiha said? Did I get the name correct?
Yeah,
pronunciation. Yeah, Strider. Yeah, I mean, he hit the nail on the head about this world, and it being essentially satanic or Luciferian, I'd say. And I mean, people might listen to that and say, "Oh my God, that sounds so out there." You just look at the theories, then you look at the manifestations. It's quite simple. Feminism, not women's rights, but feminism is a Luciferian school of thought because it emanates from this European ideology that men want to restrict women's sexuality and in terms of obviously sexual expression, so like God is an evil patriarch, men, God embodies man, vice versa, and that the serpent is the liberator of womenfolk, and that Lucifer, likewise. Now you look at some of the tenets of like say satanic, the same way that the churches have like various denominations, Satanism has various denominations too. Theosophy, is it the left-hand path? Theistic Satanism, and a lot of the Satanists believe that they are Christians, heretic Christians, and that God is not inherently and terribly problematic, but he should have listened to Lucifer. So when it comes down to feminism, and you look at a lot of the, like I said, not women's rights, you understand, but feminism itself is basically opposed to like the order of doing things. It is inherently related to anarchy, which is why when it comes down to not to go too into theories like Marxism, Marx was a Luciferian as well. Like I've got his autobiography, he pretty much says it himself. You understand? So my point is that a lot, what I'm essentially getting at is this world. When you look at a lot of what's going on, see, like I said, Strider made a point about feminism. You look at like the fact that sex is just a part of the human. It's just a part of the human condition, right? Sexual drive, But the way that is being weaponized against men isn't something that a lot of people give enough attention to. Okay. And why is it? You get my point. This oversexed. You understand, and it ties in with the whole volatility. But yeah, I'll pass it on.
Okay, fair points. I think those notions are going into another stream, so I kind of want to, I don't want to be on Lucifer's bad side right now. So, hey, Strider, I keep muting you because you have some background static. So it might be if you've got like a headset, if you've got headphones, it might be a cable thing. So if you can fix that for me, please, and then I'll unmute. But okay, I want to kind of segue into the Passport Bros because, we've spoken about RP content creators who might or might not be trying to give a crutch to guys who might not be, wanting to improve on themselves. But do we think that the Passport Bros, that's a similar kind of concept that, here are guys who might have not worked themselves that much, might have certain kind of dispositions that might annoy people, and then they just think just traveling is going to be the thing that will change everything. Like, do we think that the Passport Bros is a similar thing, that it's kind of leading into this inceldom where it's like, okay, I'm going to be in this country for the next 5 or so years and I'm not going to be involved with any woman because modern women are this, modern women are that. I'm going to wait until I travel in the future and automatically things will change.
So I I'll answer that.
Sure.
Right. I will say it's a bit of yes and no, right? And let me explain what I mean by this. Is what I see with the passport movement. First off, I have no issue with people going overseas, try to find a wife if they want to, right?
Mhm.
Now, the thing is, it's what part. It's really the issue is what part of your life or where you're at as a person, right? In this country, right, or the country that you reside in, is right. Because here's the thing: if you can't attract women here, right, going overseas, yes, it I don't like. I've traveled, right. I've been to Trinidad, I've been to St. Lucia, and I've been to Grenada, right. Now, I've spoke to a few women over there and so on and so forth, right? And the dynamics is almost exactly the same here, right? But just in a different flavor, in a different environment, right? In the end of the day, you're still going to have to be that attractive man. In the end of the day, women are still women, right? That's another thing you got to take into consideration. And the other thing is culture as well. Culture is another thing that is going to be very, very different, right? So again, it's environment. So if you have issues here, say in the West, yes, I understand that. Yes, they will say that the market's super competitive, but when it just makes sense to be brutally honest with yourself and say, hey, you know what? Have I been the best I possibly can be? Have I really gave this the best shot I could possibly get in the West? Right? Have I gone to the gym? Have I got in shape? Have I tried to get the best salary I could possibly get? Have I increased am I an intelligent dude? Have I read books? Have I learned on love, kindness, and compassion? Have I learned on things like commitment? Have I learned on things like social status? Can I prove a social? All these things, right, to take into consideration when you're trying to basically impress yourself. Yes, it sounds like a lot of work, but that's just the reality. That's just how it is, right? And now, if you could brutally say to yourself, yeah, I'm in a point of life where I could say, you know what, this is where I really want to be in life, right? And then I go overseas and I'll say, hey, look, the situation, right? The situation is, let's say, still not desirable. Then I'll say, okay, cool, go overseas, right? I'll cry, and you can't find a woman there or someone suitable after a certain amount of time. Then I'll cry with you and say, hey, look, you know what? Yeah, it's pretty much sucked here. But if that's not the case, right, and you haven't put in the work and you haven't been genuinely honest with yourself, and then you go overseas, in my opinion, I think that you are trying to find a shortcut that doesn't exist, right? That's just really that, right? Are you the best? That's the real question: is are you the best version of yourself you could possibly be, right? Obviously, there's gonna be, people will say, oh, look, what, it's always a forever ending cycle of improvement. Yes. But are you at a decent level where you could say, truly be honest, say, I'm dope. I'm a dope person. I like who I am. Right. So on and so forth. Go overseas. I got the social status. I got all that stuff. And once you go overseas and you deal with the woman there, then all right, cool. No issue. Right. No problem. And also, you got to be honest about your intentions. Are you going over there to just get box, or are you over there to actually generally build a family or have a wife? It's another thing you got to take into consideration.
Great points, bro. Let me ask Diego, like, with the passport bros, do you think it's with everything that we've discussed? Okay, so the women might have an inflated sense of what they bring to the table in terms of a relationship. So is passport bros a standard solution for every guy who thinks like that?
It's a good question, man.
Like, is that the solution to the whole quote unquote incel situation, right? I mean, we hype off, we say that, women in this region, higher state of, self-worth and all, and then the feminism aspect, a hallmark of a modern society, America, UK, Japan, then surely traveling to another country should be like a benefit, or should be like a, solution.
Well, it's a good question. I'll try to answer it the best way I can, because there's several ways you can look at it. I agree with Jesse that it shouldn't be looked upon as a last resort, especially if you can identify ways of actually improving yourself, leveling up. You understand? That should be the priority in the first instance. But then what I will say is that some women who have been getting wind of the whole rhetoric, it's kind of motivated them to compete. Do you understand? So it actually might, just the mere notion of it is actually helping more. I don't know the extent to which it's, it's happening. I'll leave that in the balance, but it is helping in pockets more women level up and more men level up as well. Because men wanting the opportunity to be able to travel, but obviously knowing that they're not in a position to attain it. Women that still want to be competitive, because think about it, the guys that can do the passport thing are mostly guys that have money to some extent. You obviously can't be a broke passport person. So for that reason, though, that's one guy gone. Each guy that goes there and gets the outcome that he's after is one less man of a certain standard for them, which is why it comes like a kind of like a wake-up call. But the thing, I'd argue that, and this is the thing about incels, because are we talking about incels that ain't got money, in quote? Are we talking about men that do have money, are accomplished to a certain extent, but their character they could evolve their character, they could better their soft skills, they could become a bit more socially adept. And why I asked that is that or why I put it out there, Kevin Samuels, the people often, when they get lost in the source and the smoke and mirrors. Fundamentally, his whole thing was about improving a small subset of guys that were high achievers, in terms of occupation and that, but were lacking in terms of their people skills. So that limited their prospects of getting win, but they already had the funds to do it. And some of those guys were like potential passport bros, and he offered them an alternative. So the high value man, his paradigm of a high value man is really a man, a transformed or redeemed lame, so to speak. So, like I said, it begs the question, how many incels, in quote, have the money to basically go? And then someone raised the question of whether going out is an absolute panacea. Are you going to find the women that have the value system to justify you doing it? And some of the guys have said, listen, at the end of the day, there's nothing that's guaranteed in life, nothing ventured, nothing gained. That being said, is it not better if, kind of like an axiom, let's just say I'm going to have 20 years in my lifespan of a decent marriage before it ends. Do I want to settle for, or at least try to get familiar misery, or am I going to embrace uncertainty, albeit with happiness within that uncertainty? And so that's also part of the motivation that's taking these guys abroad as well, because it's like, I'll take the risk. You understand? So I honestly think that it's going to work out for some men, and it will partly work out for others, and then it will be a failure for other guys. Because even if you are going to be a passport bro, I think you still have to develop you still have to grow socially. You can't, I don't think you graduate in terms of your social awareness and kind of, so you understand it's an evolving thing. If you embrace that mindset, you're continuing to grow, you're continuing to build up your perceptiveness, your wisdom, how you kind of, carry yourself among different people, your adaptability and whatnot. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, great points, man, great points. Let me quickly shout out Strider's second super chat, man. Again, salute for the $4.99 super chat. He says, I'm not sure what was causing the noise, but anyway, shout out to the panel. Let's do what we can to get to where we need to go. Excellent, great supportive comment, man. I appreciate you coming on to the panel, Strider, and I appreciate you sponsoring the show. So salute to that. Peace to you. Appreciate that. Okay, we covered the passport bros and the RP coaches. Okay, let's go back to something that was raised before then. I mean, because obviously with this stream, I'm suspecting that there's a lot more black incels than we think, right? But it's been some people suggest that there are actually far more white and Asian incels, you know, more so than black, or at least more Asian incels, more so than blacks. So would we generally agree with this, that actually the inceldom in the black community is not that bad, or it's not that as extreme as in other communities? And like, for example, the Asian guy, the typical South Asian guy with that, you know, there's a condescending C-word name that goes along with it. Are they in a worse situation than us?
I'll answer that. Because we're at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder globally, right? I will say, yeah, I'll say we are, right? Hard to say. It's hard to say, but I would say yes. And the reason why is, you know, you got to understand that there's certain parameters, there's certain things that attract women, right? And this has been going on since ancestral times, right? It hasn't been any different. It's just a different environment, right? Where we're in now, right? So basically, we got to look at what are some of the things that basically attract women, right? That's the first thing we got to look at, right? And then we got to then reflect back on what is the black community globally displaying, right? Or let's make it simple here, right? Because globally is very complex, right? So first off, we got to look at money, resources. Are we globally or even locally making a lot of money, right? I don't know the stats to that, but in my opinion, I will say no, right? Now, we're the consumers, but we're not the builders, right, in terms of wealth, in my opinion, right? I could be wrong, right? In regards to social status, right, as black people, right, do we have that? In certain cases, yes, right? You know, you can look globally how, you know, the black Americans, or, you know, even black British have how some of the culture has been adopted from other cultures all across the world globally. You can look at Japan and hip hop, right?
But then someone would say that is more so a influence stemming from sports and entertainment,
right?
So it's like some people might not see that as serious, you know?
Right, they may not see that as serious, but it's known, right? Let's just put it that way, right? Then you got to also look at, are black people globally, well, not globally, well, here, ambitious or industrious? Do we have ambition, right? That's another thing that women are attracted to. Women are attracted to guys who are ambitious and who are industrious in this, right? Who have, you know, have industry, want to build industries, right? Another thing is, are we dependable and stable, right? Some of those type of things. Do we have the intelligence? I'm not going to say yes or no on that, right? That's for you to decide. And are we compatible with those women?
Intelligence, right? For what?
Just intelligence intelligence in general, in terms of, like, if it's like parent like solving problems basically, or basically having, like, you know, oral fluency, or let's just say certain things in regards of parenting, right? Good parenting skills, cultural knowledge, various things of that nature, right?
I think we have intelligence enough to be good parents. Right. I think, you know, I don't think it has anything to do with innate intelligence, in my opinion. But I mean, those were just questions that you raised anyway.
Right. So those are just things that, you know, in general, that women are intending attractive. You know, are we on average very big, or are we strong? I would say on average, yeah, we are. A lot of black people very big and strong, right? And that's another stereotype that tends to go wrong. You see that in sports and athletics, right? Are we in good health as a people? Are we actually masculine men? That's another thing, right? So there's a lot of answers that we have to ask ourselves, right? In regards of that, you know, are we loving, caring? Are we committed?
You know, of course, it's hard to substantiate. You know, this is mostly going to be anecdotal, right? But from my point of view, as a Londoner in London, man, from what I see, it's a lot of lonely black men walking the streets, right?
Right.
And when I see black women in conjunction, a lot of lonely parents walking the streets with their kids, right? when I see the Asian typical, and when I mean Asian, of course, there's so many different regions in Asia. Of course, I'm referring to the more southern Asian, who are more predominant here in the UK, Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani. There seems to be, at least to me, more of a cohesiveness, right? Where it's like, I see far more, again, it's anecdotal, an Asian man with an Asian woman, right? Couple walking the street. Whereas on the flip side, it's, black men walking alone, black men on their J's. I mean, that's just anecdotal, but that's just what I see. Right. So that's why it leads me to believe that with all these other factors that I've listed out, that's why it seems that we are more at risk to be in this position. Right. And then we speak about the family trauma. We've got the highest lone parent rates. We speak about because of that, we might be prone to being late bloomers. We don't have the dads that will hook us up into, certain avenues. Right. And that stems from being ethnic minorities too. But it seems like the black community, we don't have that extended kind of economy as British Indians might seem to have. Right. So
as I said, regarding, but actually that's it. When it comes to desire, first we got to be desirable people first, right? If we are to attract who we want to attract. And I've always said this, like, to many people, I've said, look, desire is multifaceted. It's not just one thing. Like, for example, like, people keep, like, I see this happening in Discord. People say to me, oh, the reason why you had issues because you're 6'4", and because, you're light skin. And it's just like, bro, it's like I was 6'1" at 17 years old, and I was still light skinned, and then chicks weren't checking me. Right,
bro. You know what? To be honest, man, I've sorry to cut you. I have to say this though. I've been ripped all of my life. I'm 6'2", athletic. To be honest, man, all of that stuff gets very old very quickly, man. In any type in a relationship, like if you're not mentally sound, if you're not like interesting to be around, if you don't know how to maintain conversations, and if you're not interesting. A 6 foot whatever, and all these dimensions and all this value, money, like it can mean very little to a lot of people.
And this is why compatibility comes into play, right? And it's just like, this is the thing I try to explain. It's like, it may get you in the door, but it may not allow you to have a fulfilling long-term relationship, which is basically fulfilling each other's needs, right? So it's like, oh man, it gets very frustrating because it's like everyone keeps, like, when I go in the chat room and I say, oh, I'm 6'4", whatever, they say, oh, it's because you're 6'4". All right, cool. But what other things do I have? What other things that you have? Right? I may be 6'4", but I may not be the most intelligent, or I may not have the most money, or I may not have the independence, or there may be certain things that I'm lacking in my masculinity, right? Which other people may have that are better than me. So this is why I say it is multifaceted, right? Multifaceted. That's why a 5'4" guy, all right, I'll give you an example. Oh, you want to make it about height, right? Even though this is an extreme example, I know, unfortunately, I'm 6'4". Lionel Messi is 5'4". Last time I checked, right? I'm pretty sure he's doing pretty well, and he's got a lovely wife, lovely kid, married. So that completely debunks, But people will say, "Oh, that's extreme effort." All right, cool, whatever, innit? But in the end of the day, I'm just saying, height is not all, looks ain't all. It's multifaceted. Work with what you got, improve on the parameters that you feel you're weak on, and just be the best. Oh yeah, all right, he's 5'7". Thanks for the correction, Tosin. Right, my bad. And I watch football as well. Sorry, Messi. I'm sorry, but basically, it's you just work on the things that you have. Just deal with the cards that you've been dealt, and improve on the things that and use your strengths and your weaknesses. Right, I have weaknesses too. That's what I got to say.
Okay, great points, man. I just want to quickly squeeze it in because I know you have more information about it. But do you think with that way of thinking, with seeing things in such black and white terms, do you think that's an autistic kind of trait? Is that a typically autistic way of seeing things? Like, oh, I need to be 6'4" and I need to have this amount of money, and that will equate to me having a successful relationship.
You know what's hilarious? You know what's hilarious? I'm autistic, and I'm not even thinking in the stereotypical autistic way. I am literally on the autism spectrum. I have Asperger's syndrome, right? I was born with it. There's no cure to it, right? Thinking, sticking, just having this one parameter and thinking this is just all thing is not realistic. It's not. I'm telling you. You know, people will say, "Oh, it's cap," but you know, "Oh, bro, I'm light skinned." All right, cool. Like, okay, bro. Like, come on. You could become better. Like, you can do this. Like, people can get a girlfriend healthy. It's about putting in the work. If you disagree with it, cool. But you have given it a good shot, cool. I'm not gonna.
The thing is, you know, I noticed you doing it in the Self-Refinement City, man. For the plug, man, check the description below if you want to know what Self-Refinement City is. But I know sometimes when you get people that come in and say, "Look, it's over for me," and this and that, I know you and other good-hearted people, you have the tendency to want to kind of tell people like, no, you know, there is, you know, you just have to do this. To be honest, I've lost interest in doing that because to some degree, I think some people just, they like being a glutton to punishment. And I've been here for so many years. I just know that people are just so hard-headed that it's kind of like that being an arsehole, you know, you're asking for advice, but yet you're every day coming back saying, oh, it's over for me, bro. It's this, it's like that. It's just like no point. To some degree, there's going to be that Darwinism, survival of the fittest. If you think that you are going to fail, and okay, I can't really help you. You're going to have to have that self-determination to break out of that. Otherwise, okay, that's going to be your fate. You can't give so much. You know, there's only so much enthusiasm you can, or esteem that you can kind of put into people. Unfortunately.
You know? I know. Unfortunately, that is the case. You can't change everyone, but you know,
but we try, I guess.
You know, I try, and that's all you can really do. In the end of the day, if you believe what you believe, you're entitled to believe what you want to believe, and if you want to have that belief, and things don't work out for you how you want to be, look, there's nothing I can really much do for you. If you believe that, height, you got to be 6'4", you got to be something to get in the door. Okay, cool, no problem. If you believe that, that's your self-fulfilling prophecy, and you are going to believe that anyway. So there's nothing I can do for you.
Absolutely.
Right? I've just laid out. You know, for example, Matt Gamer is literally telling me, "Hey, look, that I am capping. If I'm capping, I'm capping. Cool, I'm capping." I have had everything that I have gone through, bro. Like, I've had so much crap that I have had to go through, right? I'm literally on the autistic spectrum. Socially awkward at one point. Social awkwardness does exist, right? I have gone through so much, right? And I literally fought to get to this position that I am in now, right? And I'm not saying it's a perfect position, but it's a decent position where it's at least a base for me to build on, so I could actually get something I want to actually have a life that I want, right?
Well said, bro.
That's the reality, bro. And if you want to have this self-defeated mindset, it's up to you, bro. And trust me, I've been there. I'll tell you a story. There was a time when I was on Solo TV 84's panel, right? This was years ago. I bust out in tears because I felt as if I couldn't even have a relations with it wasn't relations, but a long-term relationship. If you get what I'm saying, right? I was crying because I think, and someone had to tell me, "Yo, bro, like people have told me, look, it's not over, man." Right. And I was going through a hard time. Like, literally, my father passed away. My mom wasn't even around. It was literally just me in the country on my own, literally having to fight everything for myself. Right? It's not fucking easy. I know it's not. It's not meant to be easy. Right? Dating's not meant to be easy. The things that you want in life is not going to be easy. Can't stress this enough.
100%, man. Appreciate that, man. A lot of people needed to hear that. Salute to that. let me just salute Captain Toaston in the building, man. Showing some support with the $9.99 super chat, man. I really appreciate that, Captain Toaston. Peace to you. He says, off topic, but what's your opinion on Andrew Tate? To be honest with you, and I know this is going to be a mediocre response, but I generally don't really have an opinion. You know, I generally wasn't that interested in what he has to say because I've heard variants of it before. Like, I don't know what he's gotten up to, so I'm not going to judge it. But, I've seen some clips of people responding to what he said, and he's made himself look, in a bad way and to some degree, I think he's got like those dudes who just go off of the mouth and just are prone to saying anything, and they just forget that they're in front of a lot of people and they just say stuff, so yeah, really just no opinion of him. A lot of guys like him, cool, but unfortunately, yeah, with all these characters, other content creators, I'm not really excited or interested. I don't, to be honest. Right, but I appreciate the $9.99 super chat by Captain Tolson. Guys, man, I'm afraid I have to wrap this stream up, man. I know there's so much that we can say about it, but yeah, I've had to do it early because I had to. I've got some plans. I've got stuff that I need to do, man. But bruv, this is a topic that we can always do a part two to and go deeper in. But I believe everyone on the panel, man, has given a deep, thought-provoking points of view, which I appreciate, and many other angles that I didn't even think about, to be honest, like many other angles. And that's why I appreciate the open panel format. So salute to everyone in the building, man. I'm going to ask for closing thoughts, please. Just closing thoughts to round off the idea that there might be more Black British incels, or Black men in general are prone to being incels over other ethnicities. Like, if we could just wrap it in a bow, what we think or feel about that type of statement. Who would like to go first?
I'll say thank you for. Oh, this is closing thoughts, right?
Yeah. So anything that you want to highlight?
What I will say is, I appreciate you, let's say, expressing, or let's say putting up this topic. It really needed to be covered. In the end of the day, look, I'm just putting out the solutions. It's, in the end of the day, what you've got to do. And it's up to you how you want to perceive it. It's up to you how you take that information. It's up to you how you feel, if you can or you can't better that situation. If I'm capping, I'm capping. That's up to you. You have your assumption. You have your own life. You have full autonomy over your body. And that's just really that, right? And I appreciate you having me on the panel. I appreciate you giving me the mod.
Of course, anytime, man.
What I've got to really do is actually I've got to switch my second channel and my first channel's names around to Jesse McCorkin Talks and Call of Duty, so I could be the mod with that.
Okay, so is that your channel going forward? Talks.
Yeah, the Talks and the Call of Duty channel, which is going to be my second channel. But don't subscribe to it yet. Don't let no one subscribe to it yet. Don't do it. Alright, I've got things to do. But
okay, 100.
That.
Okay, man. Jesse, as always, I appreciate your talking points, man. You've been consistent on the panels as well, so I appreciate you taking your time to come up. So salute to Jesse McCorkin Talks, man. Salute to you. Okay, if we can go to Diego, if there's closing thoughts on this subject, anything that you might want to just round off this discussion with.
Yeah, sure, man. I'm glad you put on the topic, so thanks again for another thought-provoking, in my opinion, valuable stream. I think that no problem, bro. I think the question is a very good one, simply because just the rubric alone, people, watch a video, it comes up and they recommend, they'll be thinking, rah, they'll listen to it and then they'll still ruminate on that question. And why I think it's interesting is because, a lot of Black guys are subject to a lot of shaming language, a lot of shaming sign language, basically. Whether that's from other Black women and other Black men as well. So it's almost like it's a taboo to admit some level of, I don't want to say weakness, I'll say fallibility. You understand? Because I like to think a lot of Black guys, when a lot of black guys still have some distant hope, even the ones that may not be feeling at their best, that tomorrow might give them better. So I'm going to say fallibility. It's almost like you get my point, right? Like, it's almost like it's a taboo for guys to say, this is where I'm at. And, I'd like to, identify my flaws. And then, by doing so, it'll be easier to take action on them. So I think that for that reason alone, I think the stream title was very apt. Just to reiterate what I said before, I agree with you that Asians typically tend to be more communal focused. Like, they do tend to be more, I do see a lot of I can definitely kind of co-sign on my own experiences. Several guys that look not just lonely. It's one thing to be by yourself, but there's a certain kind of energy that someone who may be feeling a bit lonely gives off, and it's more subconscious. I can't explain. It's a bit abstract, but sometimes the body language, it's the energy. And so, essentially, what I would say is that the list that you gave is something for people to really think about. For those that think that there might be something there that stands out, but I think sometimes people need to look beyond the word incel and all of the should I say the baggage, if you will, like the stereotypes, the synonyms, and just ultimately look at, is this a good way of identifying any problems? And if I'm willing to embrace what those problems could be, do I have the appetite for solutions? And that's it, man. I'll end on that note.
Diego, if as always, man, appreciate you coming on as well and dedicating your time to the panel and your thoughts. So salute to Diego Ife. Hope to catch you around soon. No worries, anytime. Right. Peace. Okay, gents, man, I appreciate everyone in the building. Let me salute everyone who showed love in the super chats and everyone who came up on the panel, liked the stream, everyone who liked and commented your thoughts. I know we can take this topic further, but unfortunately I'm pressed for time. We are over the sweet spot with 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I hope this topic and this stream was of value. I think it was needed, right? Because again, from what I see, a lot of it is anecdotal, to be fair, but from what I see, I just think that all these bullet points, right? These top 10 bullet points for me equates to why I believe there might be more Black British incels, at least, than what we expect. And of course, I use the term incel not as not to antagonize, but just because we are familiar with that term. But hey, man, I hope you like the stream. As always, every stream will be Tuesday, Thursdays from about 9:30 usually. Okay, I might be able to do the odd Sunday stream as well with other videos in between. So check out other videos. I've done recent shorts as well if you haven't seen them. But I just want to say I appreciate everyone in the building and I appreciate everyone for turning out. Hope you have a good weekend and I'll catch you next week, next Tuesday for the next Falcon Blizzak live stream. But for tonight, I want to say peace. Peace.